Wow. Hello, everyone. Are you having a great day? Come on, let's hear it. You having a great day? Today, we have an opportunity to look at the changing landscape and talk about our careers, the challenges and opportunities that are out there, and I have an amazing panel. Okay, so I'm going to, before we start the questions, because I want to optimize the time that we have together and make sure you get the most time with our panelists, I do want to spend a moment to introduce each of them, let them basically talk a little about themselves, about their histories. We have a prepared question for each of them, so we'll get it kind of going. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to start with Ryan. Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, good. So I'm going to have you just introduce yourself, but here's the lead-in question for you.
Okay.
Tell me about your story. How did you get started in AI and all of the online education that you're pioneering?
So about 10 years ago, I was someone who was in academia. I studied physics and astronomy, and I was intent on being a professor of physics and astronomy, and I thought I would do research and be an academic. And I was, at some point, starting to see a lot of my colleagues moving over to data science, and at the same time feeling a little bit of frustration with the opportunities that I was finding in academia. So I started looking into data science and eventually left my postdoc and started studying data science and machine learning full time. I was studying on platforms like Coursera, like DataCamp, and really taking side projects and trying to learn by taking coursework and building stuff how to be a data scientist. And so it was through that experience that I kind of accidentally figured out that there's this growing universe of online education. And one day I found myself in San Francisco with some interviews to be a data scientist, others to be an educator in online platforms. First in Udacity was where I started. And I took that road, not so much instead of data science, because what we were doing was teaching data science. I was learning a lot of data science, but that was how I got my start in data science and AI. And it's been something that's felt like a great fit for me because I take some of what I liked about academia and I get to learn a lot, I get to teach, and feels like a great opportunity. So that's how I got my start. Yeah.
Great, well thanks for being here today. Mm-hmm. Jonathan, hi.
Hey.
How are you? Now you've been here a couple days, I think you said, you've been touring around.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, you've been loving it? Well, great. Well, my question for you, please just take a brief introduction to yourself. And with DataCamp, what are the trends that you're seeing in AI? Tell me a little bit about your insights.
Sure. So hey everyone, I'm Jonathan, one of the co-founders and the CEO of DataCamp. For those who don't know, we're an online learning platform focused specifically on data and AI skills, all the way from basic foundational skills such as data literacy, AI literacy, to more advanced kind of skills areas, how to actually do things with machine learning and data science. And so, from DataCamp's perspective, we have a bit of a unique view on the shifts in skill building that are happening in the space. I would say the number one trend we're seeing is that the growth in data and AI literacy upskilling that's happening, both from individuals as well as within organizations. Because what's happening is that people have woken up to the fact that regardless of your role, whether you're in marketing and sales and customer success, data and AI skills are now essential, whether you're in product, in engineering. And so we see a lot of foundational skill building in the platform, and that's the fastest growing area. The second shift we're observing in the market is DataCamp really used to cater to aspiring data analysts, aspiring data scientists, but we're seeing more and more software engineers who really are getting into the data space and are looking to build their data skills, their AI skills, as software engineers. And then last but not least, I would say that for the data scientist and the data analyst, their skill set is broadening as well. So we now see data scientists, data analysts looking to upskill in cloud skills, in AI. And so I think what's happening at a higher level is that as these tools get better, more powerful, that people need broader skill sets, and that it doesn't work to be like a very focused, to have a very focused skill set. You kind of need to broaden your skill set. So as a software engineer, that means data and AI skills. As a data analyst or data scientist, it means you need to understand the broader ecosystem. So those are the two trends I would kind of call out.
Great, thank you. And thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Carrie, hi.
How's it going, Arnon?
Good to see you.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah. So how do you find yourself 2 decades ago? You found yourself at Google, right?
Yeah.
And what has changed since then?
Well, so much has changed, but Arnon was actually he was the very first manager we ever hired at Google on the recruiting side. So he was my very first boss. So anybody who works at Snowflake, you're lucky to have him. But back to my little story. So I think it's been an interesting trend. I mean, talking about AI, and we've been talking in the back a lot about how everything has changed. And I had to reflect on like the changes that happened in my life, and I looked back to my like very first job ever, like when I graduated college, and my first job was selling Yellow Page ads. So imagine like selling Yellow Page ads, and then 8 years later, I'm working at Google.
Explain what that is. Yellow
Does anybody know what Yellow Page ads is? Do you guys all right? Yeah.
It's paper.
It's that long ago. Yeah, it's paper. So I was doing that, and then 8 years later, I'm working at Google, and in that time frame, it's a very short time frame, the transition that had happened was so significant, and we just like looking at the pace of change of everything today, and the way it's just incredible. And so I think it's really exciting to be here today to talk about where we are with AI.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to open it up. Remember, this is all about you. You see the microphones being held up. I would like you to help me chart the conversations. Who is first? Who's first in this lively crowd? Okay, right in the middle. Brave soul, can I kick it off?
Hi.
Hi.
With everything that's happening right now, with the enormous growth that's happening in AI, it feels that it's hard to really stay on top of things and be experienced with all the new tech that's happening. So that got me thinking, is there anything that you would be looking for in candidates or future hirings? Any traits besides experience with the latest tech?
Great. Carrie, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'd love to. In fact, it's kind of interesting that you bring that up because we were talking about it in the back. So the company I work for now is A Capital, and we do a lot of A investing, and it's mostly in AI companies. And because of that, we do look for people that are continuing to learn. So when you do see things like what these guys do, like when people take these courses and just the continuing changes, you like to see a lot of curiosity on people's resumes. It's a hard thing to express. But if there are ways to do it, I mean, even when we worked at Google, we loved to see people's resumes that were just loaded with what excites you. Like, are you a runner? Are you like, do you go hiking, biking? Like, who are you? Because it is really important. If you can layer that along with like continuing learning, I think it's been really key for what we're looking for.
And I'm really encouraged to hear that when someone's demonstrating that they're taking courses, that's something of value, because oftentimes we hear from candidates that they just took a course and they're wondering, like, what does that get me, or what am I now qualified to do? And I kind of tend to say not much, because you have to take those skills and apply it.
Yeah.
And so I would say, yes, definitely take courses and build stuff. And for anyone who was here this morning and heard our founder Andrew speak, he said some things about that he'd be more interested in a fresh college graduate who's really up on the latest in AI and learning stuff and building stuff than somebody who's got 10 years of software experience and not up on AI, not learning stuff. So I'm actually seeing that in practice in our own hiring internally. It makes it a really difficult way to hire, because you're kind of looking for somebody who's like raw potential and has nothing on paper. But I think that's actually a really compelling candidate profile right now. Somebody, if you can demonstrate that you're learning fast, building fast, then that's really compelling.
Even with all that experience, because a lot of these people are coming from different fields into this, right?
Yeah, like you said. Yeah.
Yep.
Totally.
Good.
Maybe to add one thing to that, I think the thing to really try to do as you're graduating is kind of bridge the gap between soft and hard skills. So say if you have some hard data skills, what companies are really looking for and what makes you stand out is if you can tell a story with data, a story can be about your personal passion, or if you're really into AI and you may have a software engineering background, like can you build something innovative and then build up your portfolio with kind of things like that, that really makes you stand out on the job market.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you for the question. All right, let's go to this microphone. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm okay.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions. My name is Ruchita.
Okay.
So I work in data strategy, and I have a question. When you come across things that are fairly repeatable or that have one or two objectively correct answers and you're looking to automate them, how do you position that kind of work correctly so that you're not villainized for being somebody who's taking away somebody's work or thinks that a machine can do something better if it's fairly repeatable? But how do you position that kind of work without giving the wrong message?
Right. So like on your resume or in classes they've taken, or how to position during conversations? Any
I can
ideas?
maybe comment a little bit on that, just from the perspective of being an education company. One of the things that I personally work on at DeepLearning.AI right now is trying to figure out how can we create course content more efficiently, and also how can we create entirely new learning experiences. And so I think that tends to provoke a little bit of anxiety on the team, because we're a team of people who've been responsible for spending long hours creating content, and I imagine you maybe have some of the same experience at DataCamp, but I feel like this is something where we're trying to figure out how to automate the stuff that's no fun anyway, and that leaves everyone with more time to do the stuff that you do need a human for. And so in my perspective, I would like to be able to automate the things that nobody ever wanted to do before anyway, but leave more time for the creative side of it and the part that's value adding for humans.
Totally. Maybe to add to that, I think to build on your example, DataCamp maybe launches 100, 150 courses per year. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 12 months that is a multiple, 300, 400, 500. So I think in general the way to position it is the gains in productivity are going to allow you to deliver more value to clients. The other thing I would say is, like, for anyone looking to join a company, is that the culture of the company really matters too. Because there may be companies where even with that messaging, it would be hard to change the prevailing culture. And so I would really, in your interviews, if you're thinking about joining a company, also check, like, what is the culture around innovation and AI, and what is the culture around data-driven decision-making? Because it could be an uphill battle, and then you have to choose whether that's the right company for you.
But one point, maybe I'm going to add, Carrie, just to finish that, we'll go to the next question. How could they capture that on the resume? Because you mentioned, is there a special way of taking that concept and position yourself in the best way? What do you think?
Well, I wish I had a good answer for this, and I don't. I think, through anything, whenever you're working or collaborating with anybody else, obviously you want to add everybody in on that, but just be as honest as you can on your resume. You can explain things as well if it comes to that point. I think when people now are looking at resumes, they look at the whole picture of you if they can. Like, they're going to check out LinkedIn, they're going to check you out on GitHub, they're going to check you out everywhere that they can. So just, give credit where the credit's due and go from there. But I wish I had a better answer for you.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, thank you for the question. Thank you. All right, let's go this side, please.
Hi, my name is Lucas. I recently graduated. I'm not the only recent graduate around here. I know that from recent university research that modern research in AI and machine learning is about how can we make models a lot more accurate and quicker, right? And I believe within the next 5 years, I believe algorithms will be a lot more quicker and produce quicker results. My question is, beyond more accurate and faster results, what's the next, in your opinion, the next big step in AI?
Good, yeah.
You gonna go for it?
I can maybe speak from the education perspective in specific, right? Because that's what I spent a ton of time thinking about. So I think within the education sector, there's always been this dream of creating the ideal private tutor. And that's been the philosophy behind DataCamp as well. Like, people love to learn by doing, but then they learn best when they have their private tutor. And so I think within education, what's going to happen is active learning is going to become even more active. So people are going to learn by doing regardless of what they're learning, and they're going to have a private tutor that is personalized to their need, personalized in terms of how fast it kind of helps you learn, personalized in terms of the examples, making sure they're relevant to your ambitions, your interests, and maybe personalized to the organization you're a part of. And so my answer is specific to education, but I think there's a version of that for every industry. And I would think a lot of the investments in the next years is actually going to go into even just using the models as they are today to drive value specific to an industry by kind of building systems around them. That makes sense.
Yeah, maybe, and I might just, like, I'm also coming from that perspective of education where it's really, it seems like a huge, like I've said, you know, the story of online education, or the success story of online education over the past decade, has been one of access. Everyone can now get online if all you need is access to the internet, and then you can take courses from people like Andrew Ng, who, you know, 10 years ago you had to, well, a little more than that now, but you had to go to Stanford to take courses with him. And I think that that's great, but it's a one-size-fits-all experience. And so that's not going to be the kind of education that everybody needs, as the demand for just learning new skills even faster is just growing. And so personalized tutoring, but maybe if you try to generalize that to, like, what's the next big thing in AI, it's like beyond speed and accuracy, specific results. You know, so to whatever it is you specifically need for your use case, whether that's education or something else. I think that you know, maybe the next.
Great.
Thing.
Thanks for the question. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great. All right, please.
Hi, my name is Piyush Malik, and I've been in the data and AI industry, applied AI stuff for the last 30 years. Given how much pace at which AI is developing, technology is changing almost every week, every day perhaps, how much is the importance of domain knowledge, industry experience, and domain knowledge, and how do you think are platforms like DataCamp equipped to teach people the domain knowledge, or what are the other ways people can get that domain knowledge? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that's interesting because, you know, how do you keep up, like, on curriculum as things change so fast, right?
It's a really good question. And first of all, I want to acknowledge that I completely agree with the premise of the question. I think there's tremendous value in domain-specific expertise being combined with AI understanding. And that's why we're seeing so many AI literacy programs across different organizations right now. It's because organizations realize, or are starting to realize, that the innovation is going to come from the domain experts who then get lifted up and get the skills to use AI. You're also right in assuming that's creating a challenge for us as an educational platform, because what our clients expect is that the education becomes tailored to the domain as well. Luckily, we also benefit from the productivity improvements from AI. So when I said, like, hey, we're going to go from 100, 150 courses to maybe 1,000, eventually like an infinite number of course experiences that are totally personalized to the individual, totally personalized to the organization, we are going to be able to do that because we leverage AI to do that as well. And so that's a really fascinating kind of thing that's playing out right now, where, like, yes, you do need to personalize and customize the course content more, but now we have the capability to actually do that as well.
Great.
So I'm super excited about that.
Great. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next question, please.
Yes. Hello. Thank you guys for being here. This is awesome. We've talked a lot about programming, I think, primarily for adults. And I think given the way that the future is with AI and technology, the grade school education, I think, will be impacted and shifted. I'm just curious to know what your guys' thoughts are on how K through 12 education should maybe look with technology and programming, and even AI's impact in that as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can make a comment just as someone who's totally a non-expert in K-12 education, but one of our partner companies within the AI fund ecosystem, the DeepLearning.AI ecosystem, is a company called Kira Learning that's building a platform for K-12 education. And what they are aiming for, because, well, maybe the context that's necessary there is that if you go with an assumption that kids should be learning about code, data, and AI from an early age, then the problem is that there's not a lot of teachers that already have those skills, or, you know, even if there are in some schools, there aren't in most schools. And so what they're aiming to do is empower any teacher, their specifically saying, like in the US, gym teachers can be a computer science teacher or an AI teacher. And so what they're doing is they're trying to provide a platform that allows any teacher to be able to provide that education in their school and not necessarily need to be spending half their time keeping up on the technology or updating the curriculum or whatever. So I just, from a tool perspective, I think that something like that's practical. I've also been talking with people at universities who are worried about the same thing, because whoever you are, in a university as a professor, you might be an expert today in this thing, but if you have to spend time keeping up on everything and re-updating your curriculum, then that's a challenge as well. So just from a tooling perspective, I think that there is a possibility with AI and just software platforms to make it possible to teach CS in or AI or data in every school, K-12.
Yeah, that's cool.
Good.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, I think and this is something I'm very passionate about. I think the way the education system has worked in the last 100 years has some very obvious downsides that will be overcome in the next few years, because you're moving kids with very different interests, very different skills, aptitudes. You're moving them through the same kind of factory model every year, or at least that's what's happening in most schools. And so I think if you can optimize the speed of learning to each individual student, as well as optimize what they're interested in and how you're positioning the material, I think it's going to have an incredibly positive impact on the human capabilities that come out of that educational system. So we're starting to see the first kind of startups execute on that vision, but I think we're at the very, very beginning of that trend, and it's going to be incredibly impactful.
For sure. Awesome.
Great. Thank you. Great.
Thank you.
All right, please, question.
Yeah, I'm Sashi Sridhar, and I have about 18 years experience as a software engineer, and now I moved into data engineering. So my question is, I think getting a broader range of knowledge helps you make the connections, irrespective of whether you're able to apply it right away or not. And do you think companies need to encourage their employees to seek broader knowledge rather than being focused on something that they want to learn to get their job done right now? And if that'll help any employee from losing out to AI as they are competing with AI?
Okay, that's a good question. Broader versus narrow?
Carrie, I'm struck by something you said when we were talking backstage, that in terms of patterns in candidate profiles, you're actually seeing that a lot of companies are hiring for the same sorts of things. But
yeah,
when it comes to...
we were just talking about this backstage because it is kind of interesting, because what you're saying is true. As companies evolve in the way that they're going to evolve, I don't think we're going to see the same patterns that we used to see of ladders and things like this. Like the flattening out seems like a real natural occurrence that might happen. I was just with this guy named Amjad from Replit, and he was saying, I imagine there's going to be a lot of smaller businesses. Like companies are just, they're going to shrink the employee base, but there's going to be a lot more places to work. And I don't know that a lot of companies are going to take advantage of this and actually teach their people. I hope that they do. But in the startup space, which is where I am more often than not, I do think that people that have this cross kind of functional learning, which will allow you to adapt to a lot of different things, is the key. It makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Carrie. All right, let's go this side.
All right. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous, so I have to get my little pro.
No, I appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Great.
Yeah, take your
All
time.
right. My name's Zane Grimwolf. I'm a robotics technician, and I have a dream of building machines that will help fight wildfires. After 2020, that kind of affected me personally, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. And my question is, where should I focus if I want to bring AI into real-world disaster relief?
Wow. Yeah.
That's a good one.
I mean, when you mention wildfires, it also affects me personally. I actually live up in Reno, but I did live down here, and realistically, it doesn't really matter which side of the Sierras you live on. You are going to smell some smoke. It seems like at least with wildfires specifically, it seems like the problem is the fuel more so than the fire, I guess, if that makes sense. And I don't know if there's a way to be rather than looking to detect fires, I know there's systems, AI systems that detect fires in progress, but I don't know, maybe there's a way to figure out where we need to address the fuel issue and, or how to do that with the robots. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but.
There might be simulation. I know that there's a company that we were looking at. I wish I could remember the name of it right now, and maybe I'll catch up with you afterwards. But we are talking with several companies that are doing a lot of simulation exercises. So it's, I do think that it can cross into different avenues, but they are looking for robotics style people. So like our Emmy is. So I need to find you afterwards.
Oh, thank you so much.
Great. 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 Thank you. All right, please.
Good afternoon. My background is customer success, consulting, and support. And one of the things I always focus on with my customers is structuring enablement and empowerment, because I don't want to be the one with all the answers. I want to empower them to be the ones with their answers. So this is an awesome panel for this topic. So I hear a lot about content, the agents, how we're training our LLMs. But through all the, everything that you guys are doing, what are you learning about the human element of enablement and training, and what are you learning about how, because we've evolved from text and professors and then videos, and now we're having conversations with bots. Like, what are we learning about how we learn and how we can accelerate the metabolization of information and the application of that information?
You want to take it? Jonathan, you want to try?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think one thing we've learned doing what we're doing is a lot of people are scared about what's happening in the rate of change. And so one thing we've learned is we want to make it as accessible as possible to start learning how to, for example, how to start interacting with a bot. And if you're in customer success, how can you start building your own agents that have the best of what you do and help you scale as a human customer success agent. And so kind of having a path that doesn't scare people, I think, is super important. The second thing we've learned is people get bored really easily and they get distracted really easily because there's so many ways to kind of entertain yourself on your phone or your tablet or your laptop. And so the education has to be really snappy. It has to be really interactive. You can't put people in front of a 10-minute video and assume they're going to finish it. They're going to find a way to swipe to TikTok or something else. So those would be two learnings. They're not specific to AI, but I think they're very relevant in the context of AI as well.
Mm-hmm. One thing I was going to say is just that it seems some people don't realize that their domain knowledge in whatever it is that they're an expert in, plus their human ability to just communicate well, explain things in a way that makes sense, that sort of thing, that actually all makes a ton of impact in writing prompts now for software systems that need to do something that may have to do with domain expertise, and it may need to be following a certain set of instructions. And it's actually been really interesting to me recently to just learn how much of being a good communicator plus some domain knowledge goes into making a system work versus not work when it's built on prompts. And so it's like a weird way in which human communication is merging with software development.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Let's go ahead and go over here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Suvid, and I'm a grad student. So, as you guys mentioned, employees nowadays in the age of AI should bridge the gap between hard and soft skills. So, it's been a while since I've worked in the industry, and from what I have seen, software engineers usually have to just get features from a product and build on that. There's not much customer interaction, like understand what the clients want. So how much do you think will it help if the engineers delve on the both sides, like building the products and talking to the customers? And if it does help, how do you portray it in your resume or your one-page file? Yeah.
That's a Carrie question, I think, isn't it?
Oh, is it a Carrie
I mean, I was
question?
just
All right.
thinking that, like, I don't know, when companies are looking for candidates, are they saying, well, wouldn't it be great if we could find someone who's got the tech and the...
There's nobody better than you. You're the answer to everybody's question. I think having the ability to do both things, I think it's just going to continue to become more important as we go into this AI style environment. Because if you understand the technology and you're able to talk to the people, dude, you're done. You're good. Yeah, it's a good gig.
Is it not like a master of all and like jack of all trades and master of none? Is it not like that scenario?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Like, is it better to fix on one field and not delve into multiple fields rather than sticking to it?
That's a different question, and it would depend on the company. So each company is going to have different desires on what it is that they're looking for. And I think that right now, like, because there are going to be, like we were talking about earlier, I do think there's going to be so many different styles of company. Finding the one that really suits you, fits your culture, fits what you're interested in, is going to be the way to go. But I don't think either way is either way you choose to go is not going to be bad. But if you've got companies in mind or companies that you love, like for instance, I really loved Google. I was going to do anything I could to go work there. If my focus was there, then I was going to look to do different things. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, and maybe to add one thing to that, I think what AI is doing in a lot of spaces is essentially creating a higher level of abstraction. And I do think that a higher level of abstraction is enabling you to go broader, and ideally is forcing you to develop a broader skill set. Just like way back in the day, you would write like C++ code and Python and R enabled people to go one level higher and start thinking about the business problem they were solving as well as the code they were writing. I think AI is pushing it one level higher, and so it forces you to have a broader skill set in a way.
And I'm going to add on to this as well, because I do think you just brought something up that I was thinking about. I think there's these jobs that are going to exist that in a year or two from now that just don't today. Like so, and I think what you're talking about is that. And I think it's just going to be a kind of a natural progression of where we're headed.
Well, let's go ahead with a question here.
Hi, my name is Anusha, and my question is, I'm not sure if it's quite relevant here, but I was just curious to ask. I've been overwhelmed by a lot of the talk about AI. You know, we can do X and X. Someone even said we can clone an analyst, and even for a lot of complicated as well as very trivial things, you can, use Cortex AI and get things done. I feel like we're not spending too much time talking about the cost that it's incurring, and then the cost that it will incur at a point where everybody is using it, where the infrastructure is going to get, overloaded. At that point in time, I'm not sure if that's 10 years, 2 years, I don't know, but at that point in time, do you think it's going to be like a loop of let's switch back to a non-AI tool, and where we can't afford that infrastructure, do you foresee that happening? And if that is the case, how should an analyst, proof skill themselves to be able to keep up with that environment?
Interesting question. I think in some sense, at the same time as more people are using AI and there's more like load on the system, in many cases models are getting more efficient and computers are getting more powerful, and but at the same time there's a risk of just like power consumption. Like Meta, I just saw was like, what are they investing in nuclear power plants just to power their AI? So I don't have a good answer for that, but I think that probably there's, at least I don't imagine a future in which the system gets so overloaded that we need to go back to doing something the way we did it before, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, I think you're right in the short run. The cost of AI usage is actually going to deteriorate the margins of some companies. At the same time, if you look at how fast the price is dropping, I do not think in the long run it's going to have a negative impact on costs in general or the margins of companies. I think it's going to be the opposite in all likelihood. But in the short run, there may be an effect in some industries where it's actually increasing costs quite a bit and it's decreasing margins. I don't think a few years from now that's true. The open question is, like, is the US going to have enough energy, let alone Europe, where there's even bigger issues. But I think that's going to be the bottleneck, energy, if anything.
Great. So let's go ahead and start here, and we'll end it here.
Yeah.
Please.
Hi. My name is Natalie, and I'm really early career. So I graduated with a degree in math 2 years ago, and I actually taught myself SQL and Python on DataCamp, so that's kind of fun.
Cool.
And so now at my job as a product analyst, like every day on the job as I join new projects, or even especially just being here, there's just so much to learn. There's just so many things I don't know. And on one hand, that's really exciting because I love learning. Like being here is like being back in college. But on the other hand, it's a little overwhelming in some ways. And so I guess I'm just wondering for some advice on where to start, or like what to pick to learn first.
So maybe first to acknowledge what kind of feeling you're having. I think the reality is because there's so much change, there actually needs to be more learning that happens on the job, and in a lot of organizations. And so I would make sure you build consensus with your manager, with kind of the leadership team of that organization, that there has to be more space for learning. On where to start, it's a very hard question because it's very dependent on the specific role and the specific goal you have. But my general advice would be start with the absolute basics. I feel like a lot of people jump to the shiny toys and the things that are very kind of in the news, whereas most of the ROI really comes from the real basics in my experience. And so the high-level generic advice would be don't kind of get distracted too much by the shiny toys.
Yeah, and I would just say, like, underneath it all right now, it seems like it's prompting to get something that you want. And so that may be setting up a whole agentic system that has this tree structure of different ways that tool use and all this stuff. But underneath it all, that the prompts, or writing good prompts is going to be much the same no matter which model you're using or how exactly you're trying to get to your end goal. And so you could, like Jonathan says, start small and just try, prompting to get something that'll generate that chart that you're trying to create, and then maybe, something that'll access the database that you want it, to access, and do that the way you would want it to do. And if you can reliably write prompts to get things done, then I think that carries over to whatever the next set of tools are. So that would be my suggestion. Yeah.
Great. All right, last question.
So my data journey actually started somewhere in my sophomore year in 2018, where I watched some YouTube video of Andrew Ng from Deep Learning. Then learning that, I started writing a couple of articles for DataCamp. Back then, when I was looking at the job descriptions, they were actually asking for 5-year experience. Now with the AI in HR, these bots in HR, would I still be expecting 8-year experience in Gen AI after a year or so?
Yeah, nice question. I don't know if you caught Andrew's talk this morning, but he said right now he's finding that a fresh college grad with a voracious appetite for AI and learning is more valuable than someone with 10 years of software engineering experience who's not up on AI. So he was actually, and I'm actually watching this hiring practice unfold in real time in our organization. And so I think that, of course, nobody has 10 years experience in generative AI. And realistically, even if you have 3 years experience, it's really, do you know what's happened in the last 6 months? And like, are you able to use those tools or build with what's the latest? And so I think that there's no need to worry about having to write 10 years. I mean, you said hiring practices are much the same, but I don't know. Do you feel like people are going to say, well, okay, let's forget that number of years experience thing?
But just remember, like, these job descriptions are typically written by people, and they don't matter. It's just not realistic anymore. I think this 5-year barriers to entry, I mean, it's bogus. Like, I just don't believe it's true. I think anything that you really like, if you're studying this stuff, if you're working on these things, like, you're going to be attractive to these companies. You're going to be more attractive than they even realize because the changes are happening so quickly. So, yeah.
Maybe just a final point on that. I think for everybody who's just graduated, the thing to realize is, like, if you're a voracious learner and you're like really diving in and you understand how to use the latest tools, you can be ahead of people who have been in the industry for years. Yeah. And it's actually quite a unique opportunity for everybody who's graduating, because that's not been true throughout time. Like, this is a moment where that's much more true than it was in the last 10 years, I would say.
All right, thank you. All right, how was that? Not too bad, right? So let's give another round of applause for our amazing panelists today.